I'm Heather. I am a real estate investor. I'm a real estate broker, and I've been in real estate 20 years. This is going on my 21st year. And I have had a vision to want to help the next generation real estate agents and investors do what I've done, which as we'll get into what I did or didn't do as these videos go on. But today I'm starting by just answering questions from the 101 or the 102 level investor, just the people that want to get after it but have a lot of questions and might not know how to actually do it. We are a full service brokerage, so in Dallas, the Dallas area, Texas, and if you want to buy rental property in this area, we can actually help you do it. If you don't, that's okay too. My objective is not to sell you anything. My objective is to help people execute, not just talk about it, not think about it for 27.5 years, but to do it when you're willing and when you're able. And I'm going to help you define what that is and what it means. But let's get started with our first real estate question. This question comes from Deb from Colorado. The question was, how do you know how to price a rental property? All right, let's get into it. So we, as real estate agents, I'm a broker, and there are real estate agents and brokers in Texas. You don't really need to worry about that. It doesn't really matter. Let's just call me a real estate agent, okay? And what that means is when we price property, we have access to what's called the multiple listing service. The multiple listing service is the mothership of data. That is basically we as licensed agents put the information into that system that comes from actual licensed agents in the MLS area that feeds into your market. So for example, the Greater Colorado Association of Realtors, or Northern Colorado Association of Realtors, or Denver Area Association of Realtors. In the Dallas area, there's two. One is called one is called Metro Texas Association of Realtors. There it is. And that's kind of like the main DFW. And then there's one called Collin County Association of Realtors. And there's one a little more north in the Sherman area called Grayson County Association of Realtors. And the agents that are members of that MLS association input the data into this MLS. That MLS spits out to what are called syndicated sites, which are the sites that you, the consumer, would see. Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, and the 10,000 other real estate website search engines that there are. Some are nationally known, some are well branded, some are not. Some are the mom and pop, if you will, of the local market area. We can syndicate those listings as real estate agents to the marketplace, which would be what you would see, Deb, on your end, not being a licensed realtor in your market. And so I want to give you a little bit of background to understand where the data comes from that is the most accurate. That is the holy grail of correct and accurate information that you want to use, okay, to get the best understanding. Now, because you're a consumer, you don't have access to the MLS to look at closed comps or leased out comps. Sometimes Zillow, depending on the MLS rules and regulations, can syndicate that information out. Syndicate just means transfer through the internet, I think. Basically, that's what it does. So we'll just pretend like that's the definition. And, you know, you can sometimes see that data. Sometimes you can't. But I'm going to tell you how we price properties as real estate agents to give you a little bit of insight. And if you can figure out how to do this on your own, great. All right. So what we do is we run comparables. It's called a Comparative Market Analysis. A CMA is a term and lingo we use here in the Dallas area, but it's a pretty common term in all markets. And typically how we do it as a company is we take what we do, we call it a mini micro, a micro, a mini macro, and a macro search. Now, you don't have to do all that. That might sound overwhelming, and I'm not trying to overwhelm you. Let's just start with the mini micro search. This is how it looks. So we take plus or minus 5 years of the age of construction. So if it was built in 1990, we would take 1985 to 1995 comparables. Okay, that's one data point of the criteria. Then we start with plus or minus 10% of the square footage of the property. So if the property is 2,000 square feet, we would take, so 10% of 2,000 square feet is 200. So we would take plus and minus 200. So that'd be 1,800 to 2,200 square feet would be our data point. And then we would work out from there. I'll get back to that one in a minute, but we start with 10%. And then we like to see like bedrooms and like bathrooms. So if it's 3-2, we'd like to see other 3-2s that are comparable. And then we start usually with 6 months. So that'd be about 180 days. And then we work back to about a year, 365 days. And we like to do it in the same neighborhood, okay? Now, there's a lot of master plan communities here in Texas with a lot of different phases. I don't know if that's what your market is like, Deb, but if it is, you want to pay attention to that because certain phases have different lot sizes and different builder finish outs, which changes price points. So you want to make sure you really are comparing apples to apples, okay? So what you would do is start with that criteria and see how many yielded returns you get, okay? You want at least 3 is the magic number. If you have 3, that's a pretty good go. And then what you want to do is you want to look at those comps and read the descriptions and see how long it took them to get leased out. And if they started out at 1,800 feet and they ended at, if they started out at 1,800 list price and they ended up leasing it at 1,400 and they were on the market 265 days, you want to really pay attention to that. That means unless their property is completely different than yours, you're probably not getting $1,800. So use that and don't have rose-colored glasses. And so you start with that criteria, okay? And then you work your way and massage that criteria. Like, for example, we were running some comps today on a master plan neighborhood in Frisco, Texas. And essentially, it just wasn't yielding enough property, and it should have because it's a big neighborhood. It actually had about 5,000 home sites in it, which is a pretty big neighborhood. Think about it. That's like a cruise ship. A lot of huge cruise ships. Well, they have like 5,000 people. So actually the neighborhood is much bigger if it has 5,000 homes. Think about the average family size. But this is a big neighborhood, like a 15-year master plan community. So essentially, but in that neighborhood we just weren't yielding a lot of results with that search criteria. And I even verified it by going to another 5,000 home a master plan community and just to see, hey, why is there so little comparatives here? But it was just the low comparatives. There were only like 122 over the last 3 years. I wanted to see the last 3 years because we were only yielding 22 results of all properties sold in that neighborhood, removing the criteria in the last 6 months. So I was like, okay, let me just validate. That seems like a super low percentage when this neighborhood has so large. But really, that's the truth. It gave me understanding, really, for the first time, why there's such a housing shortage. Because if there were only 122 solds, these were sales comps, not lease, but there was 122 sales in a neighborhood of 5,000. Do the math, divide 122 divided by 5,000. It's actually like 2.3% of houses sold in the last 3 years. So that's less than 1% per year. Well, we had way more people moving to the market. We had about 500 people every single day moving to Dallas. So makes sense why you see these big apartment buildings built and why they fill up like that. So honestly, for the first time I got it. I'm like, got it. So anyway, not to digress, but that is how we kind of analyze the assets. That's how we start the mini micro search. So if that criteria doesn't yield 3 results, then we move on then we start changing criteria from there. Right, Rocky? What do you think? Yeah, he totally agrees. So we'd start changing criteria from there. Basically, we would remove the square footage, or we would go 20%. Now we would do, instead of 10%, we'd do 20%. And we'd say, okay, what does that yield? Do we have at least 3 comparables that are like our asset? If that didn't work, then we would remove bed and bathroom count. And then if that didn't work, we remove the year of construction. We would just keep removing things until it worked. And if we still didn't have enough, then what we would do is and then we put all the criteria I said back on. So same bedroom, bathroom count, plus or minus 5 years of construction, plus or minus 10% of square footage. And then we would remove the neighborhood. And then we'd add the school district, and specifically the elementary school, because that's the most micro school populace of the school. As it, elementary is the tighter community with less kids going to it. And then you have middle and then high school. So we start with elementary school to see if we can find most like properties that are zoned to that school. And then we work from that. And if that doesn't work, then we go out to the zip code and we keep the same criteria. So, it just depends on your asset, but that's how we would do it. And that's how we define it. And believe me, we look at every single picture. We read the descriptions. We see because we want to know, okay, what updates does this property say it has? Excuse me. We want to see if it has, I don't know, again, what was the story of the property? Sometimes we'll go deeper into the data and see what was the builder, if we can figure that out. How many times has it changed ownership? Like, there's a lot of variables, but I don't want to overwhelm you. I'm telling you what real estate agents do. And listen, I'm not going to try to convince you to get a realtor or not get a realtor, because honestly, everybody's different. Really it depends on your personality and your background and your ambition and your tenacity and your understanding and your risk tolerance and your vision and your goals and your finances, and just so many variables that I can't generally speak to say you should always get a real estate agent or you should never get a real estate agent. I just don't want to do that. So for you specifically, Deb, that's how we price properties as real estate agents. I know you're not one, but I'm giving you that insight so you can understand how we do it. Okay, now for you, I guess what you would do is, if you're already working with a realtor to buy your property, your next real estate rental property, just ask them to run comps. That's the easiest way to do it. And trust them, because they're the professional, especially if you're working with a realtor that does deal in rental property. There are different marketing models and different specializations for all kinds of realtors. So if you're working with one that specializes in rental property investing, then they will know way more than you could ever know. Especially if as your first rental, really lean on them. You don't need to reinvent the wheel on this. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. Okay, if you don't want to do that, or you're not working with a realtor, then I would suggest, yes, Zillow is a great resource. It depends. You could use the taxing authorities, at least to define the purchase price. That probably won't help you a lot on the rental. But in Texas, it's a non-disclosure state, so the taxing appraisals don't always match the purchase prices. But in other states, they do. So it just depends there. But that could be a resource. And I would say too, like, trial and error. Believe it or not, sometimes rental property investors take a negative cash flow. That's not ideal. And it's hard to scale if you do that. But sometimes people have equity plays in mind in like really appreciative markets like California. They take a lot of negative cash flow in those markets, especially if they're using financing. If they pay cash, obviously you're not taking a negative cash flow. But if you do financing, sometimes you are. And so just know, if that's in your life is a possibility, people do take negative cash flow. So don't feel like you're a total loser if you are or have to. I have taken negative cash flow many times in my life. I don't condone that for the first-time realtor. That's more of an advanced tool. But again, it's not one size fits all. Okay, so don't think you're wrong if you are. You just need to always make sure you have enough income from your job or other cash flow opportunities to hedge that properly and have a reserve account to cover things in case they go wrong. But I hope this helps you learn at least how we price properties as realtors. And worst case, if you decide to just price it on your own, just test the market. You just want to do a simple A/B testing and not get too tied to the outcome. A lot of this is trial and error, okay? And sometimes we're not right, even though we have that level of due diligence that most good realtors, which there are plenty of good realtors, A lot of realtors are great. They put that kind of care into it, even though it's only a lease property. So I'm telling you, like, you might just have to trial and error. If you think it's worth $2,400, throw it up there. What you want to do is take a price drop in a reasonable manner. We like to take consistent price drops 2 to 3 weeks. That keeps you on a rhythm. We don't take price drops erroneously like on a Sunday afternoon. We like to take them Thursday or Friday to give the market the whole weekend to respond, because most people still see properties on the weekend. They just do, even though a lot of people work from home. It's just how it works. Most people see properties and make real estate decisions on weekends. It's just how it goes. So hope that helps. But just give yourself a lot of grace and it'll work out. Play the long game. Make the commitment and never give up. And you will always, always, always win. You might feel like you lose a little bit in the short term, but you will always win the war. Hope this helps you, Deb. Go price that property. Bye now.